Hey guys, Metal Viking 82 here, back with yet another video. I had not planned on doing a third video this morning, but I've been wanting to talk about these recent reissues put out by Doom to Obscurity Records, so I figured, what the hell, I'm going to go ahead and get this video knocked out as well so people can get out there and check these releases out. Of course, Doom to Obscurity, I have talked about this label for quite a while. You've seen me mention them several times on this channel, and I've actually become friends with David, the owner, and he puts out some really killer stuff. And basically, if you've not heard of Doom to Obscurity before, if you've not seen me mention them before, they basically put out reissues of kind of obscure death metal gems, bands that either didn't have a proper release, it's kind of like maybe a promo tape here or there, or just very limited releases, or something that's been out of print for a while, and he basically resurrects them, brings them to life, gives them kind of a solid reissue treatment and puts them out there. And I found a lot of killer bands through his efforts, including one from here from Indiana that I knew nothing about. And there's been a couple things that he's put out that I was just kind of it's not really in my wheelhouse, so I didn't really pick them up. But I've pretty much picked up just about everything that this label has put out. And here recently, he put out 4 more releases. And all of them are really good, and I cannot wait to show these to you. And out of the 4, 3 of them were completely unknown to me, which is one of the things I love about what he does, because, like I said, I've discovered a lot of cool bands from Doom to Obscurity, and I always look forward to getting that email saying that, they've released something new. So yeah, I'm going to kick things off with one by a band called Epicedium, entitled Conspiracy with the Death. Yeah, these guys are a brutal death metal band out of the Frankfurt, Germany area. Been around since 1996. This is their second full-length album, put out independently by the band on CD back in 1999, limited to 241 copies. This is obviously the reissue by Doom to Obscurity, limited to 300 copies. I got a picture of the band right there. Like I said, I'm still kind of working on fighting the glare here. And the disc. Now, one thing that sticks out immediately when you listen to this album are the drums, simply because of their production. Overall, the sound to them is good, and the playing is pretty good as well, but the kicks, though, is where it really stands out, because, the sound of the kick drums actually kind of reminds me of Bill Andrews, circa, Death, Spiritual Healing. But the thing about them is that they're a bit forward in the mix and kind of come close to really drowning out a lot of the other instruments as they're playing. It doesn't quite do it, but it is definitely on the verge, especially during the blast beats and everything. But other than that, the bass guitar definitely grabs your attention as well. It's just got this very thick, powerful tone to it. The guitars on this thing are hefty, but they're not really overly polished as well. They're fast-paced with plenty of headbangable mid-tempo grooves, such as in the second track here, Human Corpse Decay. While listening to this, when you're listening to the guitars, Death again comes to mind. Not only with the kick drum sound reminding me of Death, but also the guitars really remind you of Death as well at certain points. As well, I also hear a little bit of Fear Factory in their sound, and maybe what was the other band that I was thinking of? There's another band that it was actually making me think of as well. But yeah, Death and Fear Factory definitely kind of come to mind when you're listening to this in terms of the guitars. Sasha Henschel's vocals are these low, rumbly growls, and they're just nasty sounding, and they also throw in some nasty sounding screams at times. He even sounds like, he does some screams that kind of remind you of Chris Barnes, such as in the 4th track, Infected Death. Track number 5, though, Dismembered Bodies Remain. That song is just creepy as fuck. It has this phlegmy, gurgly scream towards the beginning, and it's just got this, it's just an overall this creepy, slow, heavy banger. And this actually ends with a live cover of the Cannibal Corpse classic Hammer Smash Face, which I think they absolutely nailed. His vocals on that sounded absolutely killer as well. So yeah, definitely a cool band. They actually have, I think, 4 other albums. 3 of them are independently released by the band, so hopefully David will be able to actually reissue 1 or more of those. And they do have another one that was actually put out on a label, and I saw that you can actually get that one as Savard Records, so I'm gonna have to pick that one up at some point. Next up, now this is the band out of this entire short stack, that the only one that I actually knew, because I have one of their other reissues that David put out, but this is Forgotten Souls with Oral Abortion. And got live shots of the band there. And disc. But yeah, Forgotten Souls, Oral Abortion, death metal out of King George, Virginia. This band was active between 1990 and 1994. This is their lone EP, put out by the band themselves on tape back in 1994. This CD reissue is limited to 500 copies. They do have one previous demo, as I said, that came out in 1993, Doomed to Obscurity. Also reissued that, which is actually how I discovered this band. I gotta say, the production overall on this thing has that, recorded live in the rehearsal room feel to it, in terms of kind of that, it has that primitive, old school death metal sound. The drums on this thing, while nothing, overly flashy, are definitely solid. The bass is fairly audible in the mix, but it still has, it kind of sits a little bit lower in the mix. It kind of seems to, as the EP goes on, it kind of comes out just a little bit more. Excuse me. Having some technical issues here. Give me 1 second. There we go. Now we're cooking. But yeah, the guitars, though, they have that kind of old school death metal, kind of dirty sound to them. They're fast and thrashy with some nice tremolos, but you also have some more slower, doomier moments throughout here, and as well as those kind of mid-tempo grooves and chugs. Now, the last track on here, Cold, Stiff, and Pregnant, which, dear Lord, definitely Cannibal Corpse inspired there. At 9+ minutes in length, this is the longest song on this EP. It was basically the band kind of trying to experiment a little bit with their sound, as there's definitely a few different tempo changes throughout this whole thing. It starts, kind of doomier than the other two tracks on here. And then it kind of switches back and forth between kind of going back to, the fast business as usual stuff to the doomier stuff. But then at one point you get this kind of slow picked, ethereal sounding riff that comes in, but it comes in like a couple of like spurts, like you're just going along fast as hell. And then all of a sudden you just get this little, ethereal riff, and then it goes back, and then it comes, goes slow. It does that like 2 or 3 different times, and then finally the kind of riff kind of gets its own little section, so it just kind of slows down. You get that slow, ethereal sounding riff and everything. But honestly, it just doesn't work. I think it really hampers the kind of overall flow of the song. I know, like I said, they were trying to experiment with their sound a little bit, but just doing that, it really messed with it. I mean, if they had gone along and then just kind of maybe slowed it down to a little bit slower, doomier section, and then all of a sudden that riff came in, and you got that little ethereal passage and everything, I think it really would have worked out a whole lot better. But just kind of doing the, giving you little blips here and there, and then suddenly giving it this whole little set, it felt clunky to me, and it was not, it just didn't work. I wish they'd have done a little bit better. But overall, this is just absolutely fantastic. The vocals on here are killer. They got these nice, powerful, lower register growls mixed with just nasty sounding screams. As I said, this band has been disbanded for a long time, but yeah, really cool to finally have the second bit of material from this band. Next up, Brain Dead, self-titled. Not much going on the back there. Disc, and I don't think, yeah, got a little bit of a picture of the band there under the disc. But yeah, another one. Again, I did not know anything about this band, but they were a death metal band from the, let me read this, the Born, Saxony, Anhalt, Germany area from 1993 to 1998. This is their lone full-length album put out by the band themselves on CD in 1996. This reissue is limited to 300 copies. And yeah, this is a complete DIY recording, if I have ever heard it, recorded in the rehearsal room by the band themselves because they had no other options. Therefore, the production on this thing is fairly raw, to say the least, but given the circumstances, it actually doesn't sound too bad overall. again, this is another one of those albums where the drums are not overly flashy or anything, but he provides some really solid rhythms on here, and the double bass and blast beats I think were on point. The bass has this very Terry Butler-ish quality to it, you know, thick with that little bit of a twang to it, which I definitely like. Dirty, crunchy guitars hit you with fast, thrashy riffs, chuggy mid-tempo grooves, and just honestly, it has some serious nods to Cannibal Corpse on here, such as the opening to track number 7, Hail Der Satan. And also during track number 8, the closing track, Crank, has some nice, you know, Cannibal Corpse-ish moments to it. Track number 4, though, Hell on Earth, has a really nice, slow, chugged groove to it that about halfway through, it, you know, has that nice little groove, and that kind of goes back to business as usual and going this, you know, fast as fuck once again. The vocals on this thing are just low, you know, growls and roars. They sound very Dying Fetus-ish, if I must say. This definitely is one of those ones that it makes you wonder if this guys had, you know, better recording situation, better production and everything, what these guys could have accomplished, because the talent is definitely there when you listen to this. So, you know, I kind of wish they'd have had like a better recording situation, but for what it is, it's actually a really, really solid album. And like I said, this is another one of those bands that I wish, you know, were still around, or we could see, you know, maybe they had better opportunities and, you know, we could see what they, you know, are like today. But for now, this is all we get from them. And, you know, once again, David has given these guys, you know, a great reissue job. His stuff is always quality, I must say. And last, most certainly not least, this is my favorite of the 4 that I picked up. I absolutely love this thing. I've listened to it probably the most out of all of these. But this is Abortus with Forever Suffer. You got the band on the back. Nice little live shot. But, yeah, Abortus. Oh, man. Death metal from the Chicago, Illinois area. Active from 1993 to, I'm not exactly sure when they split up, but they are split up. This is their lone demo, originally put out by the band themselves in 1995 on cassette. The CD is limited to 500 copies, excuse me. The production on this thing is just so dense and so heavy. It is easily my favorite, as I said, out of all these reissues. The drum work on this thing is just absolutely killer. It's chaotic at times, but overall very precise. Lots of nice fills, fast as hell, double bass and blast beats. But the bass on this thing, son of a bitch. I mean, just one word describes the bass on this thing. Massive. It sits right up in the mix throughout this entire thing, and tonally it has a very Cryptopsy-ish feel to it. Think the Blasphemy Made Flesh bass work on that album, and just not only the tone, but just the playing in general has that same feel to it. Excuse me here. But yeah, the guitars, though, they are heavy and fast-paced for the most part, but you also still get plenty of headbangable grooves as well, such as the opening track, or the opening to track number 2, Sexual Asphyxia. Vocally, you get these just absolutely savage, roared vocals that at times that are very Lord Wormish. Like I said, there's a lot of Cryptopsy feel to this entire thing, but you know, he mixes those nice roars and everything with these more traditional growls. I mean, I loved his vocals on here. Like I said, there's just so much Cryptopsy feel to this demo. It's just simply controlled chaos is the best way to describe this thing. I mean, everything about this is so well done, from the vocals to the drum work. The bass, like I said, really stood out to me. I mean, bass usually stands out to me anyway, because that's kind of what I look for. But this thing is just absolutely crushing, and I cannot recommend this one enough. If you didn't pick up any of the other 4 for whatever reason, and you only picked up this one, yeah, you had made a good decision. But definitely pick up all 4 of these. I think they are fantastic reissues. Like I said, David does a fantastic job on all of these. Like, you know, no matter what he puts out, he's got some really cool stuff in the pipelines, I guess. I cannot wait to see what that entails. So yeah, I will be leaving a link down below to the Doom to Obscurity Bandcamp, so you can check these and all his other releases for yourself and pick up copies. And yeah, go show them some support. That is going to do it. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing. And until next time, stay brutal.